Hey guys, welcome back to Sacred Vedic Astrology. My name is Samantha and I'm so blessed and so lucky to be a professional Vedic astrologer. So today we're going to do one of our chart analysis lessons where we zone in onto one aspect of a chart. So this is going to be a 7th house lesson. How do we analyze and understand the story that is being told by someone's 7th house? And it's not so simplistic as, let's say, Western astrology. We're going to do that Vedic deep dive analysis, and I thought a perfect chart to look into was the chart of Goldie. The reason being, Goldie Hawn has been with Kurt Russell for a very long time now, but they're not married. Okay, so they've been together forever, not married, but they seem to have a really great, solid relationship. And interestingly enough, this is actually a lesson in Vedic astrology analysis for me as well, too, is I was assuming in my mind, okay, we're going to pull up Goldie Hawn's Vedic astrological chart and her 7th house is going to be great, right? Because she has this great relationship. And then what I come to find out is before the relationship with her current partner, like this notorious Hollywood couple, she actually had 2 divorces. So I did not know that, and I was shocked when I pulled up her chart and I saw what was going on with her 7th house, and I was like, wait a second. She had to have been divorced at least once based on her 7th house analysis, and she was divorced twice. So we're going to get into that. She has one of those charts where her not getting married in the traditional sense is actually good. It's actually good for her chart, okay? So she's totally doing the right thing by not getting into the contractual agreement of marriage, which is the 7th house. So we're going to analyze Goldie Hawn's 7th house, the planets that sit there, the 7th ruler. We're going to get into all of it, the Venus placement as well too, and this is going to be a really deep dive into just the analysis of the 7th house, right? So I think these videos are really important for someone to really learn like a certain aspect of Vedic astrology. Of course, the full chart analysis videos are really fun, and I love to do those as well too, but I think these will really like embed something into someone's mind like that. So we're going to get into it. And we're going to start analyzing Goldie Hawn's 7th house. Okay. So, starting off with Goldie Hawn's story within her 7th house, right? So, what has been happening for her with marriage? So, she has been divorced twice, right? And they were really tumultuous, intense marriages leading to divorce. She talks about it a little bit, saying they were just the wrong relationships. There was a lot of issues in those 2 prior marriages, right? And interestingly enough, she has issues, a lot of issues for her 7th house. So, married twice, divorced twice. She met Kurt Russell, who she's been with for so long now. They met when he was like 16 years old. And they met, and then they went their separate paths, and then they reconnected much later on in life, okay? So, let us start with the analysis of that, right? Where do we see the divorce? Where do we see the initial loss of the marriage? So, Rahu is in the 7th house. Now, whenever Rahu or Ketu goes into the 7th first axis, there's a lot of karma being paid back in marriage and relationships, right? Because that is the nodal axis. So whenever I see Rahu in the 7th, like an alarm bell will start going off for me if there might be an initial divorce, but let's analyze further. So Rahu's there in the 7th. That's this karmic force already, right? Rahu is highs, lows, extremes, ups, downs, karma. Rahu is intense, right? It's intense when it goes into that 7th first axis. A lot of karmic relationships, a lot of fated relationships, marriages. But if there's other afflictions on the 7th, or the 7th ruler is in a negative house near a malefic, we can pretty easily predict divorce if we also throw in other factors and Rahu is in the 7th house, okay? So there's one check mark. We get Rahu in the 7th. Now, Rahu in the 7th can give famous partners. Rahu gives successful partners. Rahu gives partners who are in the spotlight to some degree. All of her marriages have been with people that were in the film industry. They were like that, right? So there was always this connection to like fame, success, very Rahu. right? And what you'll find with Rahu in the 7th house, there's an obsession there, right? Rahu can have this very obsessive quality. So people with Rahu in the 7th house, they can have a lot of different relationships, sometimes multiple marriages, right? Of course, in her case, there was 2 marriages that didn't work out, led to divorce. So Rahu expands, right? So it's a lot when it goes into the 7th house. It's karmic, it's fated. The person that they end up with can be successful in the spotlight, famous like that, but also it's expanding it, right? So that can indicate multiple marriages, many different relationships that just don't work out, right? And what you'll find with Rahu and Ketu in the first 7th axis, whether it's Rahu in the 7th, Ketu in the 7th, vice versa, right? Flip-flop. Basically, there is a lot of highs and lows that they will experience in marriage. So I've seen charts where Rahu is in the 7th, and I always tell that person, you might find a lot of the karma starts getting activated in the married life. So they might be with that person, it's fine, and then they get married in that more contractual agreement, and then things start to unravel or fall apart because that's the 7th house of marriage and contracts and agreements, right? So you'll find when like Rahu or Ketu goes in that first 7th axis, things can really unravel when marriage gets involved, right? So maybe things are not so bad and then they get married and that's when the issues start to come out. So Rahu or Ketu in the first 7th axis, highs, lows, ups, downs in marriage, like that. Karma, a lot of karma there. All right. So Rahu's in the 7th, she ends up with multiple famous partners. They're usually successful. They're in the film industry, which is eerily accurate because her 7th ruler, we'll get into that in a second, but happens to be in the 12th house of film, photography, television, like that. Okay, so Rahu's there in the 7th. Then the moon is there as well too. So the moon is actually a really positive influence in the 7th house. Moon gives a special partner. It gives someone who can be, well known, they can connect to the public, the masses. They can also be sensitive, more sensitive and introspective. They can have like feminine qualities to them with moon in the 7th. But again, moon is like ups, downs. So Rahu with the moon in the 7th house, there's going to be ups and downs in the married life, right? So that would be, another indication of divorce. Okay. So that's the analysis of what is sitting in the 7th house. Okay. Now, let's analyze the 7th ruler. So the 7th house is Gemini, right? Ruled by Mercury. So 7th ruler is wherever Mercury sits. Now, Mercury's in the 12th house, Dastana house. Okay. We do not want the 7th ruler in the 6th house, the 8th house, or the 12th house. Okay. It's not great. These are the Dastana houses, grief-producing houses, right? These houses can be good for like metaphysical, spiritual endeavors, right? So if the 10th ruler is in the 8th house and someone wants to be an astrologer, great. 7th ruler is in the 8th house, they want to marry an astrologer, great. First rulers in the 8th house, they want to be a psychic, great. Like that. So it's going to go well for like metaphysical matters. It's not going to go well for matters on the physical realm of existence. So 7th house is a house that is very focused on something very tangible, right? Like marriage. Marriage is it's not a spiritual matter, right? It's like a very day-to-day matter. And so if we think about it in that way, right, it's this very like contractual sort of agreement. And that ruler goes into a spiritual, otherworldly, strange, Dastana, moksha house, it's not going to go so well for the married life. So unless someone goes towards the like spiritual partner, the foreign partner, different culture like that, there's probably an initial divorce when the 7th ruler goes into the 6th house, the 8th house, or the 12th house, right? So it's like either they get a spiritual partner that is metaphysical to some degree, or there's like issues, okay, like that. So 7th rulers in the 12th, 2 divorces, that's that initial loss, right? Because 7th rulers going in that house that it doesn't want to be in. Also, 7th ruler is now next to the sun, which is a malefic influence, okay? So first we have Rahu in the 7th, 1 strike. Second, we have 7th ruler in a Dastana house, 2nd strike. Third, we have the 7th ruler next to a malefic, that is 3 strikes, right? 3 strikes, you're out, right? That's like a famous, I don't know if I would call it famous, but that's a well-known saying for those who study Vedic astrology, like 3 strikes, you're out, right? So it's like you look at someone's chart, if we see something 3 times and it's indicating the same thing, there it is. It's gonna happen. It's an influence that is going to play out. Okay, like that. So we already have all those issues going on. Like, we could very easily predict divorce for Goldie Hawn's chart very easily. All right, so there's that. Now, another really important aspect of this is the 7th ruler is in the 12th house. Rahu's in the 7th. What would we also predict from that? We would predict that she was drawn to foreigners or people from different cultures, different countries, because Rahu is a foreign influence. It's in the 7th. 7th ruler is in the 12th house of foreign lands, different cultures. So when I did some research, she was with many different people from different cultures at different points in her life. Okay, like there was one from Italy. I forgot all the different the different countries that they were from. There was like a couple that I saw. So, you know, it's going to give like famous, foreign, successful partners like that. Okay. Now, 7th ruler, this is where it gets very eerily accurate. So 12th house is foreign lands, different cultures, loss, moksha, spirituality, raising consciousness, a very spiritual house, but also, guys, it is quite literally the house of film, photography, television, okay? Film, photography, television. So her marriage house is ruled by the 12th house. Now, her first marriage was to a film director from 1969 to 1976. Her second marriage was to an actor and singer, okay, 1976 to 1982. Now her relationship, it's not a marriage, but he is an actor, okay? So the 3 major relationships, they were all adjacent to film, photography, television. How much more literal can we get? So that's the 7th ruler in the 12th house. Okay, it's either going to cause issues, or the person's going to be spiritual, or they're going to be foreign, or they're going to be involved in film, photography, television. And she had all of those experiences. Check, check, check. Okay. And more often than not, the 7th ruler in the 12th house is just going to cause problems. But if someone like happens to end up with someone in film, photography, or television, like, great, you know, that's a better manifestation of it. Okay. So that's really eerily accurate, right? Now, because another aspect that I want to talk about is because she has like the K2 first house, Rahu 7th house access, her whole life experience is going to be this balancing act of like herself versus relationships, right? She's going to feel like she gives too much, then she loses herself, then, you know, the cycle repeats like that. So she's learning how to be in a relationship or a marriage without losing herself because of the K2 in the first house, Rahu in the 7th house access, right? And again, Rahu in the 7th can give larger than life partners, successful partners, rich partners, famous partners, okay? And the 7th ruler near the sun can also give partners that, again, are like confident. There can be ego issues, ego clashes, people that are in the spotlight, right? We have a lot of indications of like fame and success for the partner as well too. Moon in the 7th, the masses. Moon in the 7th can give a special partner. A sun near the 7th ruler gives someone sun, right? They're solar, so they have a lot of energy that can be in the spotlight. Okay, so that is all of that. That really describes the 3 most prominent relationships, right? The 2 marriages and then Kurt Russell. They were all famous film, photography, television, like that. Okay, and then sprinkled in, she also dated many different foreign people as well too. I did research and it was like one was from Italy. I forgot the other places, but yeah, so that happened as well too. But remember, 12th house is Dastana house, house of loss as well, loss of initial marriage. Okay, so something really important to talk about is the fact that she has a really strong Venus. However, here's the thing, is like there's going to be, when it comes to chart analysis, we have to think about it like this. We live very long lives now, right? So if there's like multiple influences going on, they're probably all going to play out at different points, right? So like even though we see issues for marriage, right, 2 divorces, we also see a really strong Venus, right? And Venus is a karaka for relationships. It's also money. So, oh my goodness, her chart is like amazing for making money, best believe it. You know, she has Venus in Libra in the 11th house of great financial gains. yeah, she's going to be making money with this chart. Okay, so Venus is really strong. That's going to give some positive influence for relationships, beauty, fashion. She's going to naturally be very Venusian. Okay, but then we also get Mars onto Venus. So Mars, in its fourth aspect, does aspect Venus, and that's another indication of more intense, passionate relationships that don't always last. So then we get that Mars on Venus, which can also show like divorce when Mars goes towards Venus or the seventh ruler. Then we get that Mars like influence. But she is going to be very like passionate and creative. And she's, of course, passionate and creative. That's a lot of her career. So that Venus being so well placed in Libra is going to bring some positive influence into the relationships at some point, right? Like there's going to be some good that comes out of that. And even though the moon is with Rahu in the seventh, the moon in the seventh is actually a really good aspect because the moon will give a special sort of partner. Okay. So that's all of that. Now, what I want to discuss is, like I said earlier, multiple things are going to play out in a chart, right? So we're going to get, if there's like a lot of bad for the seventh house, they're going to have one really bad marriage or one really bad relationship. You can't really escape that, astrologically speaking. But when there's also some good influences, like a strong Venus, moon in the seventh is actually really good. They're also going to have some good that comes as well, too. So then she ends up meeting, this very healthy soulmate sort of relationship, but they don't get married. Okay. And what I find so fascinating about that is because her chart has so many seventh house issues, right? Marriage issues. Her not getting married in a contractual sense is like probably the best thing she can do. I'm almost like, I wonder if she consulted an astrologer because it's almost a little bit eerie that she would just know not to get married. I talked about this a little bit in the chart analysis I did of Maya's chart, where when someone has a really afflicted seventh house, they usually don't want to get married because they already like intuitively feel the issues that are going to come about with the afflictions on the seventh. So Goldie Hawn has a chart too, where if she came to me, I would say, you know what? Moon in the seventh, you can definitely get like a special partner at some point, but if you don't want to get married, don't do it. Stay away from the contractual agreement aspect of it, right? Because if we think about the seventh house, it's that binding agreement, right? So because her seventh house is still very afflicted and the karma gets activated with Rahu in the seventh and the seventh rulers in the 12th house of loss, it's one of those charts where she feels that and she knows that she does not need to do the marriage again. She's already done it twice and she has seen the karma and the issues that unraveled from the agreement of marriage. So it's really, really fascinating to see that because she feels that, she knows that intuitively, right? She's probably not, I have Rahu in the seventh house, my seventh ruler is in the 12th house, so just Adjustana house. Of course not, unless she went to a professional astrologer. A lot of famous people consult astrologers, actually. I remember Dua Lipa had an interview recently where she was like, I don't have a therapist, but I have an astrologer. So I would actually not be surprised at all if Goldie Hawn has gotten astrology readings and maybe she knows about the issues with her seventh house. Okay, now in the D9 Navamsha, assuming her birth time is accurate, because remember the divisional charts change so quickly, like the birth time has to be very accurate, but her birth time is 9:20, which is a very odd and specific birth time, so we would assume that's probably accurate. Her seventh ruler is in the fifth house. Okay. So seventh ruler in the fifth house is creativity, the arts, purva punya, past life credit. She's going to meet someone that feels very fated, very familiar, like they've known each other in a past life. The person is probably creative or artistic, right? And that is, again, true. She ended up with all these different creative actor, artist, film, photography, like that. Okay, so then seventh ruler is in the fifth house and Mars is in the fifth. So now the seventh ruler is a malefic in the D9 Navamsha. Seventh ruler in the fifth is not bad. Like the seventh ruler in the fifth house is actually pretty good, but Mars sits there, so we get a malefic. So now we're at like 4 strikes, you're out. This is too many malefic influences for there not to be some initial divorces or initial relationship issues, best believe it. So that's a lot of malefic influences. What I will say though is seventh ruler in the fifth house is going to give some good past life credit. It can be good or it can be bad. It can go both ways. Because Mars is there, probably the first two marriages, there was definitely some like negative past life karma being paid back like that. But I would bet you anything that with Kurt Russell, she probably just felt like it was very familiar, very fated, like they've known each other before. 7th ruler in the 5th house, it feels very past life, like that. Okay, and then because she does have that natal moon in the 7th, moon in the 7th is actually a good influence for like getting someone who's special in some way. The best planetary influences to have in the 7th is going to be the moon and Jupiter. Jupiter or the moon in the 7th house is what you would want to see. Of course, it would be much better if Rahu was not there, right? The Rahu influence in the 7th is what's giving the 2 initial divorces. But moon in the 7th can eventually give like a good special partner, someone who is connected to the masses, someone who's sensitive, someone who's more intuitive or a little bit introspective. Now, I don't know much about Kurt Russell at all, to be quite honest, but I wonder if he has some sensitive, emotional side to him. Let's see. This is such a weird Google search. Is Kurt Russell sensitive? It's like, what? I'm not really sure how we would find that information. I mean, I feel like most actors, most artists are pretty sensitive by nature, right? They have that sort of ability to tap in with their emotions, right? So let's see. Okay. Yes, Kurt Russell has demonstrated emotional behavior, becoming emotional at the Walk of Fame with Goldie Hawn, deep gratitude, reflecting on his struggles. He's also spoke about being emotionally involved in sports. Okay, so also 7th ruler in the 5th near Mars can show some interest in sports as well too. We can assume he's probably pretty sensitive. He has a very emotional side with moon in the 7th. So actually, Goldie Hawn is absolutely doing the right thing with her Vedic chart by not going towards that contractual agreement of marriage with Kurt. Like, they are on the right track with that one, which is actually really cool to see. All right, so this was a video lesson into analysis of the 7th house. This is how we do it in Vedic astrology, baby. We have to look at planets in the 7th, look at the 7th ruler, look at aspects on the 7th, and analyze it as a whole. And then we also move over to the D9 of Vamsha, analyze the 7th, analyze the 7th ruler, like that. Oh, also the Darkarka. So her Darkarka is Saturn. So it would show, again, there's a lot of karma, right, in the relationship, marriage. Also, Saturn Darkarka can show initially someone who's older. Again, this is where astrology gets complex. Like when we're analyzing the marriage house and someone has 2 marriages, 2 divorces, has 2 divorces and then is now in a relationship that's not a marriage, like that gets complex, right? But I would assume at some point one of them was older, wiser, mature, like that with Saturn Darkarka. And again, it's a lot of karma, right? Saturn is karmic by nature. So she has a lot of karmic energy activated in that marriage house. And to me, I see divorce as like a very karmic experience, right? It feels that way, especially if you have 2 of them. There's a lot of karma going on there, all right? Like that. All right, so really fascinating analysis in a Goldie Hawn's chart, and I know we're focusing on the 7th house and just looking at the marriage, but I do find it so fascinating that her 10th house of career is ruled by the 12th house of film, photography, and television. Come on. Eerily accurate. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I thought this was a really fascinating lesson because she has such a unique experience in her relationship where she has this really long-lasting, really seemingly healthy and very happy relationship, but they're not married. And I'm like looking at her chart and I'm like, thank God. Thank God they're not married, right? This is a chart where I would not recommend it. So really cool. And I think what's also cool about this is it shows us a few things. One, it shows us that someone can have a really bad or really afflicted 7th house of marriage and still end up in a really great relationship. And that relationship can be non-traditional. Maybe it's not traditional marriage, but she's really happy, right? So that's really cool to see, right? Because it shows someone can play out all the negative astrology of their 7th house, which she absolutely did, had the 2 divorces, had the relationship issues, but then they can get to a good place after that. The other thing this shows us is that everyone is on their own path and you just have to do what's right for you. I'm sure a lot of people questioned the fact that Goldie and Kurt didn't have that like traditional marriage, but it's like her life path and her astrological chart would show us that it's better for her to not marry. Like that's her best path in this lifetime, right? So that's also really cool to see as well too. You just got to trust your own path and your own intuition about these things. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment, like, and subscribe for more content and more Vedic astrological lessons coming soon, and we'll talk soon. Bye, guys.